Hi everyone, thought I would share a video of Seth's two-wheel drive car where we ended up after an immense amount of tweaking, spannering, electric changing, you name it. Never worked so hard trying to get the car to work. So disclaimer really, we've only done I think it's 2 Worksop meetings before this one. So well, rather, Seth's only done 2 Worksop meetings. I don't drive when we go there. So we are complete beginners when it comes to getting to grips with the Worksop, and generally we have struggled. And the Worksop Masters this weekend was no exception. We struggled like an absolute, yeah. So from the off, we went with the 25 car. The 25 dirt car, configured as we sort of had it from the last Worksop, but we did change the gearbox because at the last Worksop we had no grip. It was terrible. So we built up, this is the old dirt gearbox. I don't know whether we call these layback or whatever. It's so confusing, but it's basically the one with one really small idler gear here. So this is the original dirt gearbox that puts the motor even further back in the car. So we started off with that gearbox in the car, and we started off with some different electronics in the car because one of our hobby wings is away being assessed, hopefully mended, because it went pop. So yeah, so we started off with that. Practice, awful, and I mean awful. Don't know whether that's just how it is at Worksop. I think it might be, but we decided we needed to change everything because we wanted to be on a level playing field with the rest of the team. So what we did is we took our new Hobby Wing Speedo out of our carpet car, dropped that in. We dropped the an 8-turn motor in, which was the sort of least punchy motor we had in our motor box. We put the original 3-gear transmission back on, and the reason we put this back on is that we knew that the transmission was new, the ball diff inside was brand new, the slipper and the slipper pads were brand new, and we could sort of compare to the other guys that were there in terms of setup. So that's what we did, and we went out and it still wasn't very good. Seth really struggled. The car was spinning out, doing all sorts of crazy things. Under braking, it was awful. So we struggled basically. I think Seth was something like, after round 1, something like 60th or something crazy. Also, a point to note, everybody is running the disengaged arms on the back. And that was from previous Worksops as well. So basically, obviously these are the disengaged, call them the disengaged arms, and they just move the hub so much more forwards compared to your sort of standard wishbone. These are the ones that come with the car. These are the ones that everybody is running, so we're no exception. We've got these on, as you can see, on the back of the car, and we've also got the spacer here at the back, so we've got quite, even shorter wheelbase on the back of the car, and we've got the hub sort of in a middle position. We've got, I think, is it a 3 and a 2 mil spacer? So we've got the 3 mil at the back and the 2 mil at the front, so not totally forwards, but we've got a lot of sweep. I think you can see that we've got a lot of sweep on the drive shafts. So that's what we tried. So Seth had a couple of runs with the car like this. Wasn't great. We realised then that we needed to change the rear hubs because, again, the kit car on the dirt car, the 25 dirt car, these are so confusing because they're called lower and upper, and yeah, I'm assuming the lower and upper refers to the roll centre. But I just like to think of these as the tall ones and the small ones. Yeah, hopefully you can see there. One is a lot lower, this one here. But the kit comes with these. The kit comes with these in graphite. And these are the hub that we would normally run on high grip. Pretty sure it says in the manual as well that these are for higher grip situations, whereas the smaller one is for lower grip. So we swapped the hub. This is just a spare one, and we ran it in a low position. So we've got that lower hub on, and you can tell that you've got that hub on because your your drive, sort of the drive shaft here, is incredibly low. It's almost touching the wishbone. So we ran those. That was better, and the car was starting to work, but only starting to work. And by now we'd reached the end of the day. I was set in the E final. Was he in the E final or the F final? Not good. It was a long way down. And yeah. Oh, one other thing. Ride height on the car. I'm a sucker for wanting to try and run the car low, but at Worksop you need to run the car high. And progressively we were going higher and higher. This is a 17 and 18 mil gauge. And if I put that under the car, that slides under quite easily. So that's about 19 at the back. And we're at 18 at the front. So in terms of ride height, that's quite high in my opinion. 19, 18. But that's what we ended up at. And one other thing, we were chatting to lots of different people, and with regards to shock setup and shock positions, and people sort of advising us with regards to getting a bit more droop on the car, leaning the shocks in as well on the back, which makes sense, positioning the shock here inboard and having these in a little bit, which creates a lot of droop, a lot of roll in the back of the car, allows it to grip up. But Seth was having a terrible problem over this jump rhythm section. The second jump before the big kicker, the car was bucking really badly. So he'd come over this first little kicker jump, it was fine. The second jump, where you have to line it up onto the big jump, even if he went really gingerly over that, as he'd go over it, the back of the car was kicking up. And it was just driving him nuts. So what we did is we ended up standing the shock up. So this is on the furthest out position here. So we stood that fully up. And then on the wishbone, on these disengaged wishbones, you've got actually 3 holes on these. And we went to the outer hole. So we went right out. And that gave the car quite a lot less droop. So if you look at the back of the car, it's not got a massive amount of droop. Not massive. It's got enough. But in terms of when the car's riding, it's riding about here. We've only got a little bit like that, look. Only a little bit. Enough, but not a huge amount of droop. And in addition, we went to the 1-dot rear spring. We were running 2 dots on the back and 1 dot's on the front. So what I've basically done is I've stiffened the back end up by moving the shocks out. And because I've stiffened them up, we've gone from a 2-dot to a 1-dot because I didn't want too much sort of rebound in the spring. Still feels quite stiff, to be fair. And that's taken away a lot of the droop. And these were like changes that we were making by the end of the meeting. And sort of by the very end of the meeting, the car was obviously working a lot better. Wasn't kicking up over that first jump, and it was starting to look okay. So main problem we still had is Seth brakes a lot. He just brakes a lot on track. It's just how he drives, because he's a carpet outdoor Astro racer. That's you know, his background. He's not been doing this that long at a decent level, and just a couple of years really at a good level. But we've never done slippy floor racing. We don't do York really, and we've not done Worksop until this year, or rather back end of last year. And it's a totally different kettle of fish. So when we put this speedo in at the beginning of the meeting, we had to recalibrate all the radio gear. And chatting to a number of people around the pits, a lot of people were saying they were running zero drag brake. And I thought, well, that sort of makes sense, because maybe a little bit of drag brake is going to lock the back end up. Potentially, you wouldn't think it would, but maybe it's contributing to the car losing traction at the rear. Maybe it's better to have none and then you just carry the corner speed. So we started with zero drag brake, and that didn't work for us. But what we found is, when we'd calibrated this speedo up at the beginning of the day after round one, when we swapped it out to this one, because when you calibrate, you set the brakes to 100. So completely my fault. I left the speedo at 100% brake on the speedo, which we always do, and we normally turn it down on the radio, and I forgot. And Seth had run sort of the majority of the first 2, 3, maybe even 4 qualifiers with this set to 100 brake, and the brake on his transmitter still set to 100. Now normally we'd wind it down on the transmitter, which is what we do, to get to a point where he can hit the brakes and not lock the back wheels up. But obviously, you know, Seth is still learning, and he sort of trusts that I've done things right, and I hadn't, and he was struggling, and he was losing the back end under braking, and that's why. And what's interesting, guys, is chatting to people, you know, in and around the pits. I went and had a chat to some of our friends. I chatted to Michael and Phil. And Michael Finchetti just mentioned it. He just mentioned it when I quickly were chatting to him, and he said, yeah, we're running a 20% drag brake, or even more. And a lot of people are. And I thought, yeah, maybe actually we've done the exact opposite thing to what we need to do. Maybe we need to have some drag brake so that Seth doesn't need to brake. And what I did is went back to Seth's transmitter, and just by chance, because I was going through the brake settings, I noticed that he'd got 100% brake on his transmitter, and I was like, no, this is part of the problem. So we left this at 100. I said to Seth, Michael said they're running at 50% on the transmitter. Seth was like, well, I want some brakes, I'll set it to 60. So I was like, go on then, set it to 60. Let's try it at 60. So we did that, and we put the drag brake up to 20%, and Seth went out for his first final. Can't remember, because he bumped up 4 times, so was it E or F or something he was in? Something crazy. And the car was mega, and he loved it. And I thought, right, okay, it's happy now. We're in with a shout. I better charge some batteries up. Because he'd struggled all day and his mojo had gone a little bit, I thought, he's probably not going to bump up all the way to the A. So I charged 4 batteries up, and I'll put the link in the comments. But if you watch the sort of live footage from whichever final he was in, right up until the A, basically Steve Pearce on camera, bless him, is pretty much following Seth. And the commentary as well is fantastic from Tony. Again, following Seth, because he just bumped up, and he bumped up, and he bumped up, and he bumped up. And he won a couple of the finals, obviously came second in a couple. But yeah, absolutely drove his socks off. The car was mega. It's the best, you know, like I say, we've only done a couple of workshops, but I am not touching this car now. This car is staying like this, and we will just persevere if it's slippy at the start of the meeting. It was absolutely mega. Never, you know, it's very rare Seth is just absolutely like over the moon with the car, because he's a picky little bugger. But it was just like, it's fantastic, Dad. It's just so good. It's doing exactly what I wanted to do. And you could tell by how he was driving, he just had absolute confidence in the car. And obviously he finished second. He was chasing Colin May down. Obviously we race against Colin quite a lot. He's a very good driver, very consistent driver. You know, hats off to Colin for winning. But I was pretty confident Seth were going to win, I'll be honest. It just looked like he could do it. But there you go. So I will post that in the comments, but the sort of main takeaways are we still had the 1.8s and the 1.6. We had 350, 300 in the shocks. We had the 1-dot springs all round. We had the smaller hubs on the back. That's the easy way to think about these. One's big, one's small. Use this one in low grip, use this one in high grip. And then obviously you've got adjustability with the holes. And we had the holes high, so that they'll be, basically it's as low as it can possibly go. The diff obviously was a ball diff, and it was in its lowest position. The slipper, I'm talking to Johnny and his dad. Slipper, absolutely critical to get the slipper right. So we've got the slip. We have the slipper. I mean, it's backed off so much. It's, you know, it's really backed off. Is that, you know, the nut is beyond the shaft there a little bit. Another point of interest is we had the battery all the way at the back, which I know a lot of people are running the batteries forwards, but we had the ESC gear back as well. So this is in the back position. We had the LiPo back, and we also had the 30 gram hoodie weight in the car, which again, we put that in towards the end. Found the car was a lot better with that extra weight in. So I don't think there's anything else on the setup. You know, hopefully that'll help a few people if you're an X-ray. In terms of shocks again, at the back, fully stood up, one in on the front. Front of the car is kit, nothing unusual going on there. Standard kit arms, kit hubs, kit caster, although we've got 5 degrees. I can't remember what it says in the manual if it's 2.5, but we've got 5 degrees caster. Steering setup, not as dirt but as carpet, which is what everybody pretty much does. Obviously all the steering at the front of the car there is all nicely aligned. Turn that on so you can see a little bit better. So trying to, you know, quite a few spaces in there to space that out. We've got like 3 mil of spacers on the hoodie arm. We've got a spacer here as well on the link to try and level everything up. We'd also got an extra washer on the Ackerman here, just an extra 1 mil washer. Link on the front, as per what we found on carpet. We've got it in the sharp position on the front, which we feel sort of sharpens up the front end a little bit, which is nice. And then we've just got it out, just got it out on the front with the kit washer. And then on the back, last thing I guess, in terms of pills, hopefully you can see there, we've got the pills low and in, with the 0.5, I think that is. Yeah. So we've got the dots in at the back there and low, 0.5. Basically we've got 3.5 degrees rear toe on the car. We have got no washers at all under the link here. So you can see how much thread we've got through. So we've got nothing at all here. And then actually on the hub, on the inside of the hub, we've got an extra 1 mil. So we've actually got 3 mil and this this here is almost touching the wheel. Yeah, it's incredibly close. So we've got quite a steep angle on the camber link here. And that's, you know, in my humble setup opinion, is the way to go, because you're getting quite a lot of camber change through the throw of the car. So as the car's leaning and rolling, it's trying to keep the tyre flat. And the pills on the front, like I said, we've got 3.5 degrees, but where we've got the pill down at the back here, down and in, at the front we've got height wise, we've got the pill in the middle position. So we've basically put an extra degree, sort of extra half a degree of anti-squat on the car. And again, I did that because I was, you know, in my experience of driving cars over the years, I've found that sometimes adding a bit more anti-squat helps that bucking that we had on the jump. Don't know what it just does. I've just found that adding a bit more anti-squat on the back of the car helps if it's bucking. But obviously, you know, you only get 4 rounds at Worksop, so we were making quite a lot of changes at once on the car. So in terms of underneath of the car, on the metal brace, there are 4 holes on the brace underneath the car, and we've only got screws in the most forward position, so we've only got 1 screw right at the front of the brace. The other 3 holes, we've got nothing in there whatsoever, not sausage. So that's it, guys. I know I've rambled on a little bit there, but if anybody's got any questions, just come and see us. Not really going to change this now, I don't think. It's so hard at Worksop because, you know, it just seems to change. But I guess you just have to persevere. So yeah, I think that's it. I think I mentioned the motor, 8-turn motor. So, you know, one of the many mistakes we made on the 4-wheel drive, I think, is in comparison, we had a shocker with the 4-wheel, really struggled, similar sketch, changing all sorts, but we've realised now once we've got home, we had the wrong hub on the back of the 4-wheel, we had the tall one, we should have had the short one. We had the wrong blocks on the front, we should have had the 12 degrees, we had the 9 degrees. We had the wrong bump steer shims in. Don't know why, we built it without the shims. Basically probably copying off our carpet car, thinking it was the same, so we had 5mm of shims missing. So we had horrendous bump steer on the car that we only fixed at the end of the day. We had a 5-turn motor in, which didn't really think about it until we got home. Was probably a massive mistake because it was getting very hot, and it was probably overpowering the car. So I think there's a lot to be said for running a milder motor. If you watch on the videos, this thing is not slow. We had 0 degree turbo, 0 boost. We had the throttle rate on here set to, initially we had it set to about 8, and then we tried 10, and Seth complained and said, "Dad, it feels so lethargic, it's awful." And I had to go with it in the pits, and the car felt absolutely rubbish. It wouldn't set off. It was just incredible. And I had to go with our friend Callum. Just had a quick go with his car in the pits, and it just felt alive, and this felt awful. And I don't know if there's something different on the newer hobby wings, but basically if you're running a really low throttle rate, just be mindful of that, because you would think that 8, 10, 12 is going to be okay on low grip, but it wasn't. It was crap. So we changed this to 15, which is what we run on carpet. And I had to go with it in the pits, and it was like night and day. The car just felt like it was alive again. It set off. You know, didn't like the tyres up, but it set off. So definitely something to look at on the Speedo is the throttle rate. If you're running a really low throttle rate, might not be the way forwards. So yeah, a lot of changes made in the day. 24 tooth pinion as well. So quite a big pinion because it's quite a slow motor. So I think basically we need to buy some more motors. We need to buy. We've for the most part we've only bought the fast motors, and that was a bit of an eye opener really. So that's it, guys. Hopefully that helps. It does feel quite stiff, does the car, to be honest, which is interesting. Nowhere near as soft as you'd think it would be. You know, it is quite stiff. But it just slid round the corners so well. Handled great, jumped great, just inspired a lot of confidence for Seth. And that's, at the end of the day, that's where you want to be. You need to be at a point where you're confident in the car, and we were. So that's it. Hopefully that helps. Any questions, just let me know.